Hey everybody, it's Mike. We're back with another episode, and I just want to say to everybody who sent a gift, a couple of you, for from the well wishes for my wedding. I really appreciate it. I'm a married man right now. I married Deborah. I married Deborah last Friday in Brooklyn. It was very nice. So thank you guys so much for your support. Today's episode is going to be about it's about it's about landlords. It's about landlords. It's about evictions. It's about some stuff that's going on right now. And as always, I woke up this morning. I said, "Oh fuck, it's Tuesday. I have to figure out a show." I started looking through Twitter, looking through YouTube and whatnot, and I said, "Well, this is kind of interesting to me. I don't know very much. I don't know much about this, so I feel like it's a good opportunity to do some research, to find out some stuff, maybe relay some information to you guys." I did a show last night, and a couple of the guys that hosted the show were like, "Oh, I always learn so much when I listen to your podcast." And I was like, "Well, that's good, I guess." My guest today is a new friend of mine. When you're a man in your 30s, you don't have an opportunity to make that many friends. Your friends start to pass away, number one, and then number two, they just you don't see them as much. So this guy and a couple other guys from Buffalo called me in the summer, and they were like, "Hey, why don't you come up to Buffalo and hang out with us and barbecue?" And it was cool. It was like it was like doing a nice little road gig, So my guest today is a lawyer. My guest today is a real scumbag attorney from Buffalo. His name is Lee, and we're happy to have him on the show. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's honestly, it's like, like those fantasy camps for, like baseball players or whatever.
Uh-huh.
When you get to, go, pretend you're pitching to Barry Bonds or something.
Yeah.
When Barry Bonds is 50, you get to, so this is kind of like that. I'm
You're
living
like,
out, I dream in my mid 30s,
You're like Mark Wahlberg in that movie where he tries out for the Eagles, right? Is that the movie?
Well, yeah, actually kind of like that, except more incompetent.
Yeah.
And definitely not going to make the team. So
Yeah. Well, act like you've been here before.
all right.
But anyway, yeah. So Lee is a lawyer. I got to tell you, it's really good to have a lawyer in your life, because when Deborah and I were driving up to Buffalo, she got pulled over, got a speeding ticket, and Lee was like, "Give me the ticket, I'll take care of it." So it's nice just have somebody, even if they don't practice the type of law that you have a problem with. I would definitely recommend having a Lee in your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, actually, I just got back the judge's sentence in that. I got it knocked down from points, but I just got it back. It's $300, so she can write a check to the town of Elma.
Is it really?
Yeah, I begged.
Jesus.
I pleaded.
That's what a speeding ticket costs?
Yeah, I mean, she was going pretty fast, so.
Yeah, you still have to pay it, $300.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
you got the
Deb.
points knocked off.
Yeah, I really.
She says thank you very much.
I'll tell her I'm sorry. I thought I could do better than that. So
he says he's sorry. He thought he could do better. She said she's happy.
All right, I don't believe it, but
I figured a speeding ticket was like $135 or something.
I think she was going like 18, almost 20 over.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what it was. I told the judge that she was, going for, pulling over for some sort of teleconference, and that you were this struggling New York entertainer.
Nice.
And that this was really hard, and then, the judge just didn't seem to care, I guess. So
yeah,
I tried. I'm sorry.
I did bad. I did crowd work with that judge last time I was in Buffalo, and I was like, I bet this guy's got a little dick. And he was like, I remember that guy.
Yeah, well, if he's an attorney, he probably does.
Dick. So. What's that?
I said if he's an attorney, he probably does.
Probably, right?
A bunch of assholes, so.
Yeah. Also, I do want to say right away, guys, if you can, support the Patreon, patreon.com/sitdownpod. We do a show every single day, 20 minutes a day. Lee's a subscriber, and, I think the show's pretty good sometimes. All right, that's it. So patreon.com/sitdownpod, if you don't mind. if you don't mind, if you got it, we've done 3 ads on this show in our over 2-year run, and all our revenue comes from listeners like you. So please consider, giving less money, like I always say, to whatever charity that you give to, and support the New Racine family. Okay. I don't want my baby to get made fun of at the baby park. If I ever have kids, have it get laughed at. All right. Anyway, so I was watching. I watch Rising in the morning, and there was some story about an app. The app is called Civil, and what it does is it lets gig economy workers find work evicting people. So what you can do is it's kind of like TaskRabbit, where TaskRabbit, when people say, "Oh, I need some shelves put up," or "I need something moved," this one, it's like you're hired by the property owner, and they say, "There's an elderly woman who's behind in rent. She hasn't paid in a couple months, and what we'd like you to do is we'd like you to go to her house and smash her We want you to put her belongings in a dumpster." And then change the locks if you can do that. And what's nice is you can earn up to $125 an hour evicting these people.
Yeah, it's kind of wild because, like, at least in most of New York State, when you get an eviction warrant, it's usually like up here in Buffalo, we've got specific marshals that do it, or other towns have like constables and stuff. But it's wild that there's just individuals with no background checks, or there's a slight background check, I think, or something like that, and they have to have a car,
right?
Doing this shit because
right.
It's absolutely wild.
Yeah, and then so I guess eviction is something I never really thought about. I mean, I don't know if you've ever faced the possibility of eviction, but it's one of those things where I think I have, I've always had money to cover my expenses if I had to, or if I, it seems like it's going to be a real thing for about 30 to 40 million people when this moratorium expires, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now, at least in New York, it's on hold.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's on hold, but evictions that started, that were commenced before, I want to say, March 17th of this year, those can proceed, and warrants for those evictions can start being issued October 1st.
Yeah.
So we're going to start seeing a trickle of that.
Yeah.
And then when this kind of, right now, at least in New York State and in a few other states as well, there's been these kind of rolling moratoriums on evictions. And this is all kind of done ad hoc. They, in New York State anyways, we've got Governor Cuomo issuing, the executive order 202, which basically, it's been all like the suspensions of laws, et cetera, or enforcement of laws for, COVID related stuff. But what he's been doing is kind of pushing out, evictions month after month after month, and kind of with no end in sight, which is a good thing. It's a good thing considering where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really have a structured plan as to what to do when at some point this ends.
Yeah.
It's going to be a huge backlog in the system, and no one knows what to do.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
But also, what do you think of that narrative? Because we hear this a lot, and I feel like you hear people repeating this a lot, especially on social media and stuff, where it's like the narrative of the sort of the mom and pop landlord who depend on rental income for their so they can put food on their table or whatever. Is there any validity to that, or do people? I mean, are there people out there who depend on rental income to live?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's people depending on rental income to live. I mean, I'm sure there's some.
Yeah.
But in places like New York City, you've got a lot of really big landlords. I think when you kind of go up farther out into the country, into the sticks and upstate New York, et cetera, you've got a lot of smaller landlords. Now, they might not be using it to put food on their table, but they are using it to, maybe pay the mortgage on the place. And that if they can't pay the mortgage, the bank is going to start eviction proceedings now, foreclosure proceedings. Now, those are also on hold. But at a certain point, that kind of lack of money in the system coming in from the tenant is going to, I think, affect it unless there's some governmental relief at some level of the system.
Right.
It
almost.
It could. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it could be as simple as giving a right to the tenant, or it could be you're a landlord. You show that your tenants haven't paid due to COVID restrictions. You get some sort of reimbursement check. I don't know exactly where it can come in, but that's kind of what I see is probably needing to happen, because there are going to be a lot of foreclosures, and as we know, when there's a shitload of foreclosures, that's generally not good for the economy.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
What happens to the economy when there's a lot of foreclosures?
Well,
neighborhoods, the quality goes down, and
and Big Short. That's what I base all my economic knowledge on. So
yeah. It's weird because I think I'm from a very middle class upbringing, and it's you see homeless people forever, you see homeless people as something you see when you go to the city, and it's there are even a lot of mainstream comedy used to be pretty the smelly homeless guy, but it's I'm trying to find the right words here, but you know what I mean? We're not that far, most people are not that, or a lot of people are not that far from being homeless. And I think you do get to a point in your life where you're just kind of I'll just be homeless. I'll just live under the bridge where my friends are.
Well, there's that, but there's also, what happens when you got a family?
Yeah.
You've got, a wife or a kid.
Yeah.
You can't do that, but in certain cases you end up in that situation.
Yeah.
And it happens a fair amount. They're not the chronically homeless.
Yeah.
But they're hopefully temporarily homeless who, really need just help getting out of that, because there's kids at stake. There's people who didn't make these choices that are in that situation. And that's what I'm really kind of concerned about, because the people who can't pay the rent prior to COVID are one thing, but there are going to be a bunch of people who lose jobs, probably going to be low paying jobs, retail jobs, etc., who have a family. They were able to maintain their lives in the society before, and now they're not going to be able to. So
yeah. Well, they could always get a job working for Civil. That's this podcast is sponsored by Civil, the app that helps you throw elderly people out of their homes. Do you have 2 arms and a strong back? Can you lift up a couch that's been in an elderly woman's family for generations and throw it into a dumpster? Download Civil today. Use promo code SITDOWN and get a free... No, just kidding. But it's funny. I was doing some research about this app, and it looks like it says right here, the app charges workers $35 a month to use the service on top of a 30% cut of their earnings, according to its terms of service. The terms also ask users to give up their rights to sue the company and agree to resolve any disputes in arbitration, requirements that typically raise concerns among labor experts. So some spokesperson for the company was like, we don't really see what the big deal is. We're providing a service. But it's you're charging people $35 a month to work, just to be listed on, which is kind of unheard of, right? With a lot of these apps.
Yeah, that's particularly wild. They're independent contractors, or they're framing them as that, and they're going to not have all the protections that someone who would be an actual employee would have, despite the fact that they're going to be controlling all of their work. It's ridiculous. I also just wonder if they're charging them $35, a month to do that. I'm just wondering if this is just some, I don't know how to say a pyramid scheme, but some sort of bullshit. People are desperate. They need work. Some sort of scam.
Yeah, it's almost like you're exploiting two different. You're exploiting two different types of people because you're making money off of the workers who are desperate enough to, to go and do this kind of work, and then you're also making money off of people being evicted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty great. I mean, it's brilliant, but it's disgusting.
But does it kind of seem like some of these evictions are very like, I don't know, it just seems very short-sighted of these landlords? I mean, like okay, if I have a building, maybe like a 3-unit building, and the second floor is not paying their rent, and I evict them, yeah, maybe that's good for me because I can rent that apartment out. But then I'm contributing to like a potential crisis, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've been moving people out of the city.
Yeah. Well, all I'm saying too, I'm seeing a lot more human shit on the street as well. I went to the C train, dude. I was going on. I had to go to the DMV, and I took the C train, and I like walked down the steps, and like right in front of the steps was just a massive pile of, and you can tell human shit from dog shit.
Well, what is it about? I mean, I remember the first time I was in New York City as an adult, and I'm in my friend's car, and we're driving down the street. He'd been living there in college, and we see a guy just taking a shit in a bag. I mean,
yeah.
I don't understand it. I mean, are there a lack of public?
Well, it's hard to find a restroom, and also lately, I mean, usually Starbucks was kind of the go-to for public restrooms, and now it's like Starbucks closed all their bathrooms, which is another kind of like short-sighted, I think very capitalistic thing where it's like, okay, well maybe your bathroom doesn't have homeless people, shitting and fucking in it, but you're contributing to a crisis of lots of duty on the street.
Yeah.
That's
certainly a problem. It's like the like back in the day when horses used to roam the streets and they just shit everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
that's just people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Now we don't have the Irish to clean it up.
Yeah. They've moved on to being cops or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something. Cops and accountants, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this ad says reviews for Civil are mixed on Google Play and in the Apple App Store. Several people accuse it of being a scam that collects people's information but doesn't provide job leads in exchange for its monthly fee. That would kind of make sense, because I feel like in New York there's a million scams like that. There's a million like you're on like I live in the city. I don't have a job. I go on Craigslist to the job page. It says security guard jobs. So you go to this cattle call where it's like you and 200 guys from East New York, and they go, so we provide training to be a security guard. It's $200. Do you want to sign up today? And it's just like a way. It's like
sounds like the UCB scam.
Kind of, yeah.
Kidding.
Yeah, well, that's like, tell your defense contractor father that you want to be famous. This is the only way. Your father with oil money.
Yeah.
But so it says, yeah, the Google Play Store was flooded with 1-star reviews by people accusing the app of human rights violations. There is something though with a lot of these like middleman tech companies. There is like a very sort of like, there's like a banality to it, but it's this weird thing where it's like they don't have to acknowledge that they're hurting or exploiting people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's even they can hide behind that like we're the internet or we're apps or big tech, we're connecting people, but it almost then in the same way like YouTube comments connect people. They a lot of times can make it a lot worse.
Right. Yeah, it's just this weird thing of like because there was a I invested in a company called because I was watching a video and this guy was like, oh, there's this company called Upwork where it like connects freelancers, and when I started doing more research about the company, they were like, well, usually if there's a dispute between the company that hires you and the freelancer, Upwork will usually side with the company. It's just this very weird, like this whole gig economy future that we're going into. It seems like a good idea, but I don't know if I like it.
Well, it's one of those things where you hear like a lot of futurists talk about basically how we're going to have to do multiple jobs. I've even heard. I mean, yeah, I've even heard this with people talk about how someone in a profession like an attorney would need to be doing, both be an attorney, a business owner,
you got to walk dogs on the
realtor.
weekends.
Yeah, and it kind of there's a lot of cool shit you can do in that model, but at the same time, when you diversify yourself like that, I think you become more replaceable, and it kind of destabilizes or removes power from the individual who has the specific type of employment to say, like, I'm a valued person, or more generally, collectively act to bargain, like unions, et cetera, to bargain for, better wages, even if it's not even directly a union thing. I mean, it just kind of disperses that power, and I think hurts the labor side of it. But I'm talking like this as an insurance company attorney. So. Yeah.
Well, that is a good point though, because it's like it's like they found a way to sort of fragment people and to like create this sort of like every man for himself type of landscape where it's like, but then they normalize it when they go like, you got to get out there and hustle. Like, I was watching some YouTube video today and some guy was talking about civil, and I don't know if he was like for or against that. I didn't get to the end of the video, but he was like, I always say you got to have 2 or 3 sources of income. You got to have a side hustle. And I think that's a relatively new concept. I think like it seems like something that's developed in the past 10 years or so.
Yeah.
There's always been like, I mean, there's always been people who work multiple jobs, but the concept of like the side hustle, where it's like make extra income, and it's like, but for what? Why am I making extra income, and why can't I just work 40 hours a week and make a living wage? But they make it seem like cool,
Yeah, I mean, they sell it like both like as part of like, this is what your dream job is, or this is what your dream is ultimately to do, and you should be working on that. But at the same time, you should also be working on it in a job you hate or sucks, etc. And then you don't fully commit to one.
Yeah.
And you spend all your time doing the other, and you don't ever succeed. I mean, it's just like I think it's just kind of like a reframing of like the American dream in a really shitty way that exploits more people's hours and time and mental resources. It's gross.
For sure.
It's also like rappers love it.
Yeah.
Which I find wild. Like, they're the most capitalistic group of people I've ever seen, until I think Kanye today tweeted that they need a union. But
really?
Yeah.
That's
he kind
great.
of horsed around on his political beliefs recently. I think he's back to being liberal.
Yeah, it's just kind of like very, very just like straightforward, like class analysis, and we're like, he's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was an article that came out recently, and like I think T.I. was like, make sure you buy property with your stimulus check instead of sneakers. Like this weird this framing of like just everybody, like poor people are stupid. And you should use your money. You should use that $1,200 you got after losing your job to invest wisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This thing right here says civil pits struggling people working for the app against struggling people who are being evicted. Housing is a human right, whether or not the U.S. government recognizes it, one user wrote. Attempting to profit off of human suffering is pure evil, especially during a global pandemic, wrote another. A spokesman for the company said, "This is just an issue that we didn't cause, but we are needed. This is something that has to be done. Listen, if someone is killed on the street, someone needs to go pick that body up." And that's true, And that's when they call Mike Racine. Go grab that body. There was a video.
Well, I was going to ask you. Wouldn't your moving business kind of nicely transition into this sort of thing?
I think we could. Yeah, I think we could. I don't know, man.
Yeah, but it's just this weird thing where, like, if there was a family present, I don't think I would do this job. I think I could. I think I could walk away from it. But if somebody wasn't there, you don't know how bad this pandemic's going to get either. If somebody wasn't there and they were just like, "Hey, throw this furniture in the garbage," maybe I would do it. I don't know.
My mom was or is an attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and she started a career in Baltimore, working for, I think, one of their big firms there, and she was in the real estate practice.
Mm-hmm.
Part of their thing was foreclosures, and in Maryland at the time, you would have to, as the attorney, show up at the person's house that you were evicting the day of. She's telling me that, like, people would be there sobbing to her. You know, like,
was she evicting people?
Yeah, she was evicting people.
Nice.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I have a son at home and he needs Ninja Turtle action figures. So
exactly.
I'm trying to buy my little boy a Nintendo 64.
And meanwhile, that baby is being kicked out, and I'm you know, in nice Ninja Turtle sheets. But yeah, they would either, like, they'd have, like, bags of coins. Like, this is all the money we owe. You know, this is it. I can pay right now. And the sheriff would be there, and they'd kick him out. It was just a terrible scene. I think it really took a toll on her.
Yeah.
I mean, as it should, in fairness.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, your mom sounds like a real cunt. Just kidding. But I guess it's a thing where, like, I don't know, is there any reactionary part of your brain that goes like, well, you know, it is business and people have an investment in these properties.
I mean, for me, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get it.
Yeah.
In fairness, some tenants are really shitty. You know, I'm sure you deal with all sorts of people.
Yeah.
If you're being fair about who you're, renting to.
Yeah, yeah.
So
no, but it just seems like, but if people are, I don't know, if people are sobbing, maybe there's something you can do to, it just seems like usually for most of the interactions I've had in life, it's like it's easy to reach an agreement with people, you know?
Yeah. I mean, many times, well, when lawyers aren't involved, yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
When lawyers get involved, and they're a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
Ruin everything.
Right. Well, I guess, too, because a lawyer doesn't have to look the person in the face who's being, kicked out of their home.
Yeah, I don't know. My job, I do it a fair amount. So.
What's that?
In my job, I do it a fair amount when I have to look someone in the face and say, we're cutting your benefits to, half of what they were.
Yeah.
I used to, when I started this job, and I call it a job, not a career, but I would probably make someone cry, I would say, every other week, which is pretty shitty. I mean,
nice.
On the other hand, there are people abusing systems too, so you gotta look at it that way. I don't know.
I know. I guess that's the other thing. It's like, yeah, you do think about that part of it. I don't know. And then if they pass a law that says nobody can evict you, I don't know. I think most people don't want to be that person who takes advantage of. I don't know. Who knows?
Is that Frankie?
That's Frankie. Yeah.
Hi, Frankie.
Our neighbors are coming in the house.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think most people don't. It's one of those things where you see extreme examples, and that taints your view of what everyone else must be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it took me a long time doing what I do to realize that most people do not get hurt at work.
Yeah.
And
right.
B, that most people aren't trying to screw these systems. But I see it when it gets shitty.
Right.
So when you see it when it gets shitty, it kind of I start thinking like everyone's a piece of shit.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, like our landlord, when we signed the lease, he was like, if anything ever happens or you fall on hard times, he's like, let me know. I'll work with you. He's like, he seems like kind of a decent guy. He's got a family, and he always talks to me about TikTok. He's like, you gotta get on TikTok. It's so funny. All the comedians are on there.
Yeah.
So, Yeah. So.
Have you taken his advice? Are you on TikTok?
No.
Okay.
But aren't they about to ban it?
I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Did Trump say he was going to ban it?
I think so. I read something. I think they're going to ban. I don't know.
Sweet. That'd be fun.
Yeah, but anyway, no, I went through this thing with my old landlords. I guess if you listen to the Patreon, you know. So we were asked to move out of our apartment. We were incentivized to move out of our apartment at the end of March this year, and then we were offered $2,400, which was our rent to move out, to break our lease early. And then after we moved out, we wrote an email and they were like, "Sorry, we're not making a payment at this time." That's all they said. And then it took months of back and forth and emails and threatens from, threatening to sue. And then they finally recently offered us $1,500 of the $2,400 incentive, and we figured it was a better idea to take it than to have to pursue a lawsuit or anything. But it's just like we went into the office and my Israeli landlord was there and he was like, of course, wearing his fucking shiny T-shirt and his shiny jeans, and he like wouldn't look at it. It's like he stepped out of his office for a second, but like didn't acknowledge that we were there because I'm sure he like felt. And that's kind of the thing that bothers me. Where we've talked about this on the show a lot, where it's like the people who actually, you know what? Maybe you should take me off speaker, Lee, because I'm hearing like a little echo.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Hold on.
Yeah, but there's this thing of like the person who gives the order isn't the one who has to look the person in the face, and they're not doing the actual dirty work, and that type of thing. It's very much like we'll do this, we'll send the email, but we're not gonna. I'm not gonna personally say no. I'm not giving you the money that I promised.
It's like what's worse, like robbing someone, strong arm robbery or embezzling money. You know,
right?
They're both shitty.
Right.
One you gotta kind of respect a little more because at least they've got the guts to look.
At least they've got the guts. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
The weird thing, I mean, I don't know I can't remember how much you went on to it in this show, but this is actually I'll throw the disclaimer in now because this is where I'm going to talk about New York law a little bit, but this is not legal advice, entertainment purposes only, blah blah blah. And I also think it would be great if I get disbarred because of this show.
Yeah,
it'd be pretty cool.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So when that shit happened with your former landlord, I think he turned around and said that there was damages or some sort of, you guys had some sort of issue moving out, but he also refunded your security deposit, which he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And when someone moves out of a place, you're supposed to be provided notice that you can request an inspection of your place. And that must be provided basically 2 weeks prior to your move out date. And secondly, to keep money from your security deposit, they've got to provide you an itemized list of basically anything that is wrong. And my understanding is that did not happen with you guys. And if that doesn't happen, then if they don't follow those rules, don't provide you the full refund within 14 days, they're both subject to basically giving you the entirety of your deposit back, as well as possible penalties, which can be up to like 2 times the amount of the deposit or amount withheld. So, I mean, I don't think they were in great bargaining position from what I've heard about it.
Well, they gave us our security deposit back. They just didn't give us the incentive money that they promised for us to move out. But see, this is like the thing that's frustrating, where I think they know what they're doing is they're taking advantage of people who don't know the law like as much as they do. They're probably and then there's the whole process of finding the right lawyer and hoping that works out. And then this lawyer that I talked to wanted me to pay $300 to for him to write a legal letter. So it was just kind of this thing where just the whole process. I mean, even doing research for this episode, the whole thing is like very Like I felt like Homer Simpson, where I'm looking up words. I mean, I don't really know what a moratorium is, to be honest with you. I just kind of fill in the blanks. It's like learning another language or something, you know?
Yeah, contextual, like basically reasoning to figure out what it is.
Yeah, I mean, what's more? It's like essentially a ban, I guess, right? So I don't know why they don't just say ban.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A temporary stoppage,
right.
Basically.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so at least in New York, anyways, there recently was passed. I think it was in 2019, the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, which provides a lot more protections for tenants. Way more than there were before, and a lot of procedures that need to be followed. Now, that being said, as you pointed out, they there's a lot of there's a lot of language to this law, so you probably don't know exactly what they can and can't do, and if you don't know how to use the court system to call them out on it, or
right.
even know what you're supposed to be looking for, like how the hell are you supposed to do any of this,
right?
So
but it was and it was such a shitty thing to deal with these people in the way that they kind of like, you just felt like you were dealing with like a bully, like a girl, like a shitty ex, you know? Like the guy calls me and he's like, okay, first of all, and Deborah, I take a lot more shit than Deborah does, because he tried to do this with her, but he called me and he was like, first of all, it's never a good idea to like threaten a lawsuit or whatever. And I was like, I'm just gonna listen. Fuck you. And this is why Palestinians blow themselves up, because of this shit. But like, I mean, I totally get it now, But he was almost like he was like lecturing me like he was my father or something, and it's just like, what do you think this is? I almost like feel this is like embarrassing. And then I finally met the guy, and he was like, this very sort of like, he was like this little tiny, like middle-aged, soft-spoken guy, and I was just kind of like, I feel bad for you. But anyway, they're definitely. I mean, the point that I'm making is there's definitely a disparity of power, and no landlord is going to become homeless because a tenant didn't pay him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I would agree with that. I mean, I would say that's generally true. I'm sure there are situations where someone like owns a duplex, and that's their only property. They live upstairs. They might be relying upon that other rent to pay their income. I mean, certainly issues like that.
Yeah.
That I think could arise. But someone who owns a fucking like, well, I don't know if this would be a lot or a little in there, but like a 50-unit place, they're not.
Well, that's the thing.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean that could happen, but I think you have to realize that when you advocate for someone who's a landlord, you're advocating for someone who has. You could be potentially advocating for someone who is part of a huge real estate conglomerate or something.
Yeah.
Like big real estate is something that we don't really think of. I mean, like when we think about, because that's kind of been sort of a theme of this show. Big business. When you think about big business. You might think of like Walmart or Amazon, like that's easy to imagine, people exploiting workers. But you don't think of like, whatever, LE Capital, that's the company that rented me my apartment. You don't think of them as like a big company.
Yeah.
And they probably are.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on. So there's a story that I found. It says, even for those who, this is from Time, even for those who successfully fight eviction, the stress of how to make missed rent payments is piling up. Carla and Ricky Fallon were evicted on March 25th from the Springfield, Illinois motel they'd been living in, despite an eviction moratorium in effect since March 20th. Ricky Fallon, 58, had worked in retail until suffering a stroke in 2019. Carla, 52, was working at a Subway but had her hours reduced. A lawyer with Land of Lincoln Legal Aid brought their house to court, and a judge agreed that they had been wrongfully evicted, so the couple moved back into the motel 2 days after being kicked out. And I think that's funny because March 20th was like the beginning of the pandemic. It was when lockdown started. Like,
just the cruelty of, kicking this older couple out because someone's got to get their head caved in by a hooker, some well-paying customer has to hang himself. Has to pay the $60 for your shitty motel and then hang himself.
I've read, and I don't know if this is true, but that like hotel workers find, especially ones in shitty motel, find a fair amount of bodies, which is
do they
kind of a disturbing part of that job. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of the perfect place to kill yourself.
Yeah. Your family's not going to walk in, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just some random, little Mexican woman.
You can go through the guy's pockets.
Yeah, true.
Right before you call the cops. It says the experience was terrifying, Carla Fallon says, but now there's another worry. Every night the motel slips a bill under the couple's door tallying the $60 nightly payments they've missed. So far, they owe more than $700, and the amount grows daily. We are still stressing here, says Carla Fallon. They're not even giving them a weekly rate or a monthly rate, which I think a lot of motels do. They're giving them a bill every night, which just seems like kind of unnecessarily cruel.
This is a motel, so there's no kitchen, right?
Yeah.
I'd assume, anyways, maybe a microwave.
Well, she works at Subway, so I'd imagine she gets to take home delicious meals every single night.
True.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how these people haven't killed themselves, but
yeah,
maybe the other people in the motel were complaining because the smell of the Subway sandwiches got through, and they could smell it like a mile down the road.
Yeah, delicious French bread.
Yeah, isn't that funny? There's some kind of chemical in the Subway bread where it's like you could just smell it.
Yeah,
from
it's like that. Yeah, it's like that Cinnabon kind of. So that it's good.
Cinnabon is kind of good. Well, but Subway has very distinct. Like when I lived in Jersey, there was a Subway restaurant next to a Blockbuster, and I would go to the Blockbuster a lot, and you could smell the Subway bread from inside the Blockbuster.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah. Anyway. So then here's another story. This guy, James Gray, a 49-year-old construction worker, had been out on the streets since April 10th after being evicted from a Las Vegas motel where he'd been living in. Anyway, long story short, this guy said he's afraid to go to a homeless shelter for fear of being exposed to the virus, and to make matters worse, he can't sleep in his car. He says the motel had it towed, and it would cost him more than $670, money he doesn't have to retrieve it. So this guy was living in the motel, I guess couldn't pay his rent. Now, he said he would pay what he could, sometimes as much as $80 towards the $113 nightly bill, but they asked him to leave. They called the cops, and then they had his car towed, which is just like, it just seems like cruelty for the sake of cruelty.
Have you ever had your car towed?
Yes, in L.A.
It's brutal.
It is. And then you have to go and like you have to be like civil.
Yeah. Because they've got your car.
They've got your car, and and you go, okay, and you go, thank you. Oh, thank you very much.
Here's $450 or whatever the fuck it is.
I think it was like $280 to get my car taken out, which is yeah. Well, a year ago I would have been like, well, there's a place in hell for those people, but I don't think. I think God is just like a 14-year-old boy,
Yeah.
who just wants to watch. I think maybe you get turns being God. Like God is like a family, like a suburban family, and sometimes we get the mom, and sometimes we get the kid from Toy Story who was molested. That's our God. Yeah, I was thinking about just like. It's funny because it was like the family that towed my car. That was like this, like it must have been like a family business. So like the dad was there, and I think they were like Filipino or something. But I just thought about killing all of them. I was like, I wish I knew karate, And
I had my car towed from like right around the block.
Yeah.
This is why I hate gay pride parades. I had it towed.
Yeah. Hey, don't get me started, buddy.
They didn't put up signs for this one block. I parked there. The police towed it.
Yeah.
Did a mini tow.
Yeah.
To a private parking lot
Uh-huh.
for the parade route.
Yeah.
I got charged for the mini tow. Then I couldn't find my car. I was told it was towed, so I'm waiting for it to get, for some notice of where it is. I then get notice that it was towed from that private lot to the impound, which is a privately owned business. I had to pay for the first tow that put it in the second place,
Jesus
and then
Christ.
paid for that tow and the impound fee. And and the worst part about it for me was I went and I paid the fucking fee, and I said, I remember it just so distinctly saying to them, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah.
I can't believe I said thank you.
I know. Yeah.
It's like, this is just awful people.
But that's the other thing too, where it's like when people like being fucked over, you feel like you're being it's somebody. I mean, she didn't make that. She's just doing her job. So it's like the people who fuck you over hide behind people who are just doing their jobs. Like if you were rude to that woman who's probably not making very much money, you would be the asshole. Because you can't talk to her boss, because you can't talk to the guy who like made the decision to tow your car. You know? You can't talk to Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Or like, or I mean I don't know who it is. But there's like we've set up society in a way where it's like, "Oh, you can't yell at these people cuz they're not making that much money."
Yeah.
Well, what if they were making more money and I could call them a cunt, Maybe that would be a better society. Yeah, and they go, I got called a cunt 4 times today, but I'm making $40 an hour.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't sting so much.
Also, you've given me 2 articles so far of people living in hotels. I mean,
yeah.
Are like lots of people living in hotels? I mean, is that a thing? It feels like something you would do in the 1920s. You'd live at the.
Maybe in more. I mean, but these are. I think these are probably the most. These seem like very desperate people.
Yeah, it's probably
who don't have family they can stay with.
Yeah, but they're paying $60. They're paying $60 a day to stay in a motel. I've got to imagine there's something got them to the motel solution, which is probably getting kicked out of the place as a longer term lease.
Yeah.
I
mean, it could be being lazy.
Yeah, true.
There could be a couple of parasites. No, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, luckily, I don't think I'll be getting evicted anytime soon. But I think if I did, I don't know what I mean, I guess I would move in with my parents or something. But it's funny how there's people who don't even have that option.
Yeah. It's wild that people. I don't. Do they just not have any friends, or did they run out of friends, or did they move there? Like how did this happen? How did it? Yeah. How did it get to that point?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But that's like what the point of social safety nets are for. So you don't have a bunch of people shitting in the streets of New York.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and it's not going to stop until Bill de Blasio steps in it, which I hope he does.
Yeah, you guys seem to hate him. I've never met a New Yorker who likes him. Does anyone like him?
Well, it's just weird because I remember when he got elected, he was like the most sort of like the progressive candidate, the public advocate, like the guy who was like more far left. And it doesn't seem like he seems like an okay guy, but it doesn't seem like he's an effective or very like tactful leader. I think that's kind of the problem. He's not like
Yeah.
He's like kind of a rube. So if you're conservative, you don't like him because he's like, liberal. And then if you're liberal, you're like, this guy doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of the downfall of America, just people being rubes.
Yeah.
Just people being like Elizabeth Warren supporting rubes.
I like that, yeah.
Like, stop trusting everybody. No, she's not an Indian and she hates you. Anyway.
Yeah.
So one more landlord that I want to talk about is Jared Kushner. I watched that documentary a while ago called Dirty Money. This is just a little excerpt that I saw from a thing. So how much do you think Jared Kushner is worth? If you had to guess.
Just him, not like we're not talking about family wealth.
Yeah.
I would guess. I'm really bad at this because
Yeah.
I don't understand the scale of money anymore and like what these super elite are. But I'd say like 150 mil. Am I way off?
Yeah, so it says this one says as of 2009, Kushner's net worth is estimated about 800 million.
Jesus.
And then this Business Insider article says how Ivanka and Trump and Jared Kushner built their $1.1 billion fortune and how they plan to spend it. So 800 million. So you think now I don't know what it's like to have 800 million. I probably never will. That's okay. I've accepted that. But you would think if you had 800 million, you know, you would buy yourself a Yeti cooler, maybe a backpack cooler. By the way, how's your? I got a Yeti recently.
Yeah, you loving it?
Yeah, I keep it in the moving trucks, and I just keep waters in there just so that the guys can like stay hydrated.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. I got one. I gifted to me. I would never have paid money for it. I think there's another.
I would. I'm an idiot. I'm just a dumb You know what I was thinking? If I ever get really rich someday, I'm gonna have like a middle class theme party, and me and all my rich friends like pretend we're middle class.
Yeah,
so we'll all just show up with like Yeti coolers and be like, "I had a really good year this year." Trump 2020.
Isn't there's a cheaper version of it, like the Arctic? Isn't that the knockoff version?
It's the knockoff, but I'll tell you what, Arctic is not. Arctic is leak proof and Yeti's not. My Yeti leaks. If you carry it at a certain angle, it will leak.
Oh. Is it because the Yetis are supposed to be bear resistant? Do you know if the Arctic is?
The Arctic is too, yeah. But yeah, so the latch you have to like pull the rubber thing down and then flip it up. So it's like two movements. So I think I don't know. I get raccoons in my backyard a lot though. I might test it, see if it's raccoon, because raccoons are pretty smart.
Yeah. Super smart.
Yeah. But yeah, and then you know what else I got? And this is not a paid promotion, but I got an ice mule bag, like a backpack.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It holds a lot and it's folds down. And clips.
How long does it keep for?
They said about 24 hours.
That's not bad.
So I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I'm such a cunt now. I really am. I really just have turned into. I don't even recognize what I've turned into. But because we got new sheets and pillows for our wedding.
Oh damn!
So we have we got gifted sheets from Deb's aunts, and then we got a West Elm gift card. So we went to West Elm yesterday and got pillows. So now there's West Elm sheets and pillows on my bed, and I can't get out of bed in the morning. My bed's so comfortable.
Nice. I'm still on like my law school sheets. They're
really
pretty shitty. Yeah. I refuse to get new ones. There's like there's a Terran one recently. I refuse to get new ones.
Yeah.
I just don't want to spend the money on it. But do you think it's worth it?
If you want to do something really nice for your wife, I would say get a nice pair of sheets. I think she'll appreciate it.
Okay.
If you're ever like in the doghouse or something, like instead of flowers, or you want to do something nice, get like some really nice sheets.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have an anniversary gift. Maybe that'll be it.
Yeah. Deb asked me, what's your wife's name again?
Lindsay.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Nice. Lee and Lindsay, that's all the information you freaks are going to get. No looking her up on the... Anyway. Okay, so, yeah. Now, $800 million, I mean, that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's a nice sum of money. Most people don't get that much money. And... You know, like I said, if I had $800 million, I mean, I don't even know what I would do. Maybe I would buy like a camper, you know, like an RV.
Like the good ones, like Airstream.
I'd buy like a nice, good RV. Yeah, so I could just go camping. I don't fucking know. Yeah. I don't even want to think about it. I have everything I need. I feel very rich. So
that level of money is insane. You can put that in a savings account and have. Just live on interest that's more money than you'd ever need.
Right.
Let alone the actual amount that you have.
Right. So I'm just trying to figure out that mentality and like what it is and why why what is the thinking behind that, and is it like I just need to make the number bigger, and I mean maybe it's like a mental illness. I don't know.
Well, he was raised. I mean, he was raised rich, like super rich, right?
Yeah.
I mean, So I've got to imagine you're raised in that environment, and like it probably doesn't matter how much money you have to, like any rational observer who'd be looking in from the outside. You're probably just playing that game. Like that's just a game you are brought up to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
The money's like almost secondary to anything else. It's probably like I've got to beat whomever else. I've got to increase this because if they just were conservative with that money, they'd never for generation after generation they'd never have to work again. None of their kids, grandkids, anyone would ever have to work again.
Yeah, and that must just not be the mentality.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And we're cucks for not subscribing to that. So
we are cucks. Yeah. Hey, at least we got Yeti coolers though.
That's true.
I bet he doesn't even go to Dick's Sporting Goods, so he doesn't even know the joy of having ice in your cooler for 5 straight days.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I put ice in there on Friday, my wedding day, and there's still solid ice in there today, Tuesday.
Oh my goodness.
Pretty nice.
What a beautiful product.
What a beautiful product.
Yeah.
And also, if it's not in the budget, go with Arctic. Arctic makes fine. It looks like they make fine coolers that you'll be very happy with, and they're not, going to break the bank.
Yeah.
So, all right. So here's a story about Jared Kushner. In 2010, a home health care worker named Camilla Warren. So you know what ethnicity she is, okay? She's a working class. She's a working class black woman because there's 2 I's in her name when there doesn't need to. Right? But anyway. All right. Camilla Warren got written permission from the building's on-site manager to break her lease early after an elderly neighbor began behaving erratically. Kushner Companies did not even own her property in 2010, but sued her for breaking her lease when it bought the property 3 years later. Unable to find the document providing she had permission to leave, Kushner Companies got legal permission to clear out her bank account and garnish her wages. So Kushner was never her landlord. Kushner Companies never owned her property. But because she broke her lease and like they somehow found that she didn't have documentation, they were like, let's sue this home health. Let's sue this woman who wipes people's asses for a living. Let's garnish her. Let's empty her bank account and garnish her wages.
And here's Kushner probably never knew she existed or was a person ever. So
probably.
It's like to him, she's just kind of a line she's probably not even in a budget he ever sees. It's just kind of how a system that is set up to act like that operates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the question is like, where do you assign blame?
Right.
And
it's like
for
totally
something like that.
Right. And it's like totally legal, and they got a judge to, they got permission. They got legal permission. And I don't know. It's weird. It's almost like you're just. I think we're kind of. When we think about like America collapsing and the American empire being over, I think that might be a good thing. And part of me kind of feels like it might be time to like dismantle this country and start another one.
You're not concerned. I mean, like the concern is always like you climb to the top.
Yeah.
And you got to step on a lot of heads to get to the top.
Yeah.
And on the way down, are they not going to just pay you back over and over again? And do you want to be a part of that?
Right.
I mean, you got to stay on top, once you get there.
Yeah. I hope so. I guess I just have to. I think the two big takeaways from this episode for me is, don't pay your taxes, number one. But number two is don't trust anybody. Stop trusting people, especially Israelis. Just kidding. And but then also like if America is collapsing, that's not necessarily a bad thing. When people go, "Oh, we're living in the last days of this empire," I think maybe whatever comes out of this could be good. Empires collapse all the time.
Empires rise, something fall. Is that how the lyric goes?
I don't know.
This is the
oh, it's from Hamilton. Oh, you.
Yeah.
Oh. And Lee is gay, everybody. Oh yeah. Oceans rise, empires fall. Look, I just outgayed you.
Yeah. Well, you knew the lyrics, so.
Yeah. What does he say? Yeah, he goes, "Oceans rise, empires fall. It's much harder when it's." I don't know, but I'm gonna go listen to that show. Listen to that song. I think.
You know, when you came with the Buffalo, I was bashing, and I think I said it was really shitty, but I think I've come back around on it. I kind of go in cycles with
Hamilton. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of go in cycles with it. Sometimes I think it's just awful, like seventh grade, like teacher.
Sure.
Oh, learning can be fun shit, and then sometimes I absolutely love it. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's funny. I never felt that way about it. I never thought it was like corny. It took people saying that it was corny for me to be like, oh, maybe this is corny. But
it's that one part, like 1776, New York City. I mean, and I love musicals. Like, I love corny ass musicals.
Right.
And I could not stand that.
Really?
But then I listen to the rest of it, and I like it's fucking great.
Yeah. Well, there's also like, I mean, the guy is clearly very talented, but I think the part what I don't like about it, because it came out on Disney Plus recently, and my brother kept asking me about it. And he was like, "Did you watch Hamilton? Did you watch Hamilton?" And it felt like that. Like it felt like that when I started like jacking off, and he didn't understand why I didn't want to watch SpongeBob anymore. You know, where it's like I'm not really into it anymore. I hang out with cool socialists now. But I think some of the thinking behind it is very much like liberal. It's very much written and enjoyed by liberals who love power. You know.
Yeah.
And
that's like, I mean, and that's where it originally shows kind of to that. Well, it shows both to that crowd and the Midwest crowd that comes in.
Yeah.
Which kind of, makes it feel,
kind
of gross sometimes. But at the same time, I don't know. It's, as I said, I go back and forth on it. I do actually think it is good.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different, at least.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Lee. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for chatting with us. Do you want to plug anything?
No. Well, BlueChew.com. No.
BlueChew.com, baby.
Yeah.
I took one on my wedding night just to be safe, because you don't want to, you know.
I got like a free trial pack of it. I paid $5 shipping.
Yeah.
But was it? And my wife thought I was cheating on her.
Why? Because you were hard?
No, because she's like,
new
who
problems.
the hell, you know, like, what's the deal with this? Like, why the hell you got this?
Yeah.
But does it work?
So she saw it in the mail. Yeah, I would say
I
would say it does work. Yeah, if you're like worried about, you know, I would say it does. It worked for me.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
That's funny when that happens. I texted Deb today, and I was like, in the afternoon, I was like, I'm about to bust because I wanted her. But then I was like, shit, she's gonna think that I like meant to send it to somebody else, you know? Because who just says that? But I was already jacking off.
Just had to tell her.
Yeah. Well, you want your wife to be included in what makes you horny, you know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Like musicals and all that gay shit.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to like do horny stuff that she's not included in, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like if you see like a 60-year-old woman at the gym and you get turned on, you text your wife and you go, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Lee. Well, thanks for doing this last minute. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Hey, thank you.
We'll get together soon, hopefully.
Sounds good.
All right, boss.
All right.
Take care.
Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was Lee. That was Lee the lawyer, and he just hung up the phone. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Like I said, we are on Patreon every single day. The Patreon show is back tomorrow. I took a couple days off for my wedding, but we'll be back with episodes tomorrow, okay? So we'll be doing the show. Support the show, patreon.com/sitdownpod. I've been Mike Racine. That's the show for the week. We will see you guys next week. Or, if you're a subscriber, tomorrow. Bye-bye.